Hello, and welcome to this episode of the K&Co Tech Pod. I'm your host, Shelley Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer and Company. And today I am joined by Kirk Dunn for a conversation about data platforms, how they're creating value for the enterprise, and what's ahead on that front. Kirk, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you, Shelley. Nice to be with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Kirk, I know that you are no stranger to the tech world. You're an entrepreneur, investor, board member, philanthropist, and I know that I've really just scratched the tip of the iceberg on all of those things that you've done and that you do, and you've led companies to success before. And now, in some big news that just was announced this last week, you're back at it with Event Store, stepping into the CEO role. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. It's fun to be back.
Absolutely, absolutely. So walk me through, if you would, a little of that career backstory of yours, and then of course, I want you to share what it was about this opportunity with Event Store that enticed you back into the fray.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I spent my early years as an engineer and then very quickly figured out that the exciting parts was getting closer to the customer. So made a move into marketing and sales. And then, of course, the career went from there. I've done everything from telecom companies to internet software to storage to security. And ultimately, I think it's safe to say that data is the new gold, or data is the new tofu, or data is the new black. And during my time at Cloudera, it never became more true that that platform and that opportunity opened up all sorts of things for enterprises to be able to do they were never able to do. For example, your ability to blend dynamic data with static data. So that was a super fun time. And then after leaving there, I was investing and advising specifically in the data analytics area, mostly a little bit of security as well. And then in my travels, I got to know the investors at Event Store that I sat on a board with, and I started helping the company. As I looked under the hood, I realized that Event Store was actually tackling an age-old issue with the operational database, and realizing that the operational database was built to store data. But the truth of it is, an enterprise is really about the events of the enterprise. Somebody walks into a store, they pick up a product, they pick up another product, and they check out with a third product or what have you. And that story of how a business runs is a series of events. And Event Store is a product that actually, for lack of a better way to say it, is an append-only log that tracks every bit of the activity that goes on, thus Event Store.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I know that some of the news this week included the fact that you're reteaming with David Wang, who's stepping into the VP of Engineering role. I love this line from the press release that I saw on this. Dunn and Wang rejoin forces to give businesses the how and why of their data, not just the what. So talk with me a little bit about how excited you are about rejoining forces with him.
Well, it's been good. David and I spent years together at Cloudera, and he ran one of the key teams, the HBase team, which is effectively where the data would reside in our platform. He then went on to go build the team at Red Panda. And so you take two disciplines that become very important in data platforms. One is the origination of data and the storage of it a la database. And the second is how you actually move that data in a streaming platform. So what's key to what we're doing is we believe that, as we all know, data has to originate somewhere. And that's what a big portion of what we do is. And at the same time, if you just leave it there, then you're just storing it. You're not doing anything significant with it. We know that data that gets created needs to be used for downstream applications, analytic applications, training AI models, et cetera. So key to originating data is moving it. And so the streaming part becomes a very, very important part of what we think the future of data platforms look like. So David comes with a great skill set across both those domains.
Yeah, absolutely. So we spend a lot of time talking about data platforms around here and the massive shift that we're seeing as enterprises, of course, realize the importance of data, the role data platforms play, and then finding efficient ways to manage and access and utilize data, especially in real time. And all of these things together, of course, business mission critical. I know that I'm preaching to the choir here. So what is it you see happening in the industry on this front? And share with me your thoughts on why data platforms are just so critically important today.
hmm Well, it wasn't that long ago, earlier in my career, when, the data platform was a big mystery.
Yeah,
And now today, the data is the fuel of a business.
yeah,
Their ability of businesses, whether you're a transportation company, an entertainment company, an oil and gas company, financial services, your ability to get to that data, not just get to it, but get to it in a timely manner. And I kind of don't like the term the real-time enterprise. It's a bit overused, but
yeah,
I think it's a good one to explain. You originate data somewhere, but again, what are you doing with that data? How are you using it to better your
yeah,
approach to your customers, understand inventory better in a manufacturing environment, understand how product life cycle works, et cetera. And so what we're all about is getting the data at origination and making sure it gets to the downstream applications. If you
yeah,
think about the way a database was invented, basically it's a storage device. So you write data and effectively, and you mentioned this earlier, getting to the why and the how and the
yeah,
when. So the what is a storage element. It's you've stored a bit of data. Why did it get created? How did it get created? Is it related to other elements? And what Event Store is all about is exposing the how, why, when to the what, so that you can really understand what that data means to
yeah.
your organization and then use it in other ways as you would choose.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, in this age of AI, you've said a couple of things that, some phrases that we use often in the industry. Data is the new gold. Data is
Yeah.
the lifeblood of every business. And like you, sometimes I grow weary of saying the same things over and over again. But the reality of it is that that's very true, never more so
hmm
than now in an age of AI. And
hmm
I did some research. Published a study recently on the state of data management, and I thought it was interesting. Everyone, 87% of the respondents to my survey indicated they plan on implementing AI in the next 12 months, and that probably is not, oh, we've never used AI before, but it's really a more advanced evolution of AI. But that
hmm
said, the primary challenges that they face are, organizing unstructured data for machine learning, organizing structured data for machine
Yeah.
learning, organizing unstructured data for RAG. And the reality of it is, and this is why we keep having so many conversations about data and data management, and I think why Event Store and what you're doing is so relevant, is that we can't have AI success without alignment here on the data management front. And
hmm
data volume plays an outsized role, and all of these things kind of factor together to, I think we're at this moment where these kind of solutions are incredibly important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the line I love is data is the new tofu. And that was one from we used to put out these t-shirts at Cloudera and we would always
Yeah.
try to invent the
Be
new
silly.
tagline. Yeah. But what you're describing is interesting because if you think about, and there's so much more that you can do with data than just AI, but if you
Oh,
think about
sure.
the principal issue of AI, what is it? It's learning.
Yeah.
And so how are the models that we've built learning? Well, you would have to ask yourself, well, where's the source of that data that those models are learning on?
Yeah.
Well, it's being generated at the origin of where data is generated, at the operational database. So if you have an inventory application or a sales application or any other kind of application, you're generating data at source. So the question is, are you storing that data and it's just sitting there in its classic rows and columns or in its graph or in some other form, key value store? Is it just sitting there or are you actually getting that data moving
Yeah.
so that you can actually teach using that data those models and they can be up to date? Because the key to any data creation isn't that you're creating the data, it's how quickly and how available is it to the other applications downstream to be
Yeah.
used effectively.
Yeah.
So again, it's like you create data and you leave it in a storage device. Well, that doesn't inform the enterprise. That doesn't create an opportunity to use it to learn new things. And again, I think the key element to this is time.
Yeah.
So there was a time when years ago there was no such thing as a data lake or a data warehouse or an enterprise data warehouse. It's an operational database. All those analytic platforms have emerged because the businesses said we need to learn more about our data. And then guess what's happened over the last 10 years? The compression of time and
Yeah.
thus the real-time enterprise. So again, where Event Store comes in is we sit at the origination of the data, an event native database. So
Yeah.
we'll curate that data, we log it so we know every bit that's come in, when and why it happened, and then we can serve it to downstream applications and analytic workloads, as well as AI learning models via our streaming engine. So we think it's a super important time that people are thinking about doing it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's always super cool when you answer a question that I haven't even asked yet, which
Oh,
that was
perfect.
that was the next thing I was going to explore. And I know this is a differentiator, this, Event Store being an event native data platform company, and that this, this I do think is the evolution, part of the evolution of modern data platforms. Anything else to add on that front?
Yeah, I would just say, and again, this is not a knock on the traditional data platforms that are today in the operational area, but those platforms, because of kind of the expense of, well, the issue of Moore's law, storage is expensive, memory is expensive, CPU is expensive. When they were invented 40 years ago, when it all started, it was basically you stored the latest state, which
Yeah,
meant you wrote over the previous state. You just would
yeah,
write over it. Well, we know there's been tremendous numbers of ways to get around that, like change data capture companies, et cetera, to capture the timeliness of what actually occurred prior.
yeah.
Well, we built a product from scratch that actually logs every activity from origin. So it's native to us to capture everything in the system. And we think that's absolutely instrumental to how you would want to use the data downstream and in the future. So that's kind of a fundamental, what I would say, variation on the operational database theme that we've added.
Got it. So, what do you see specific to Event Store that differentiates Event Store as a data platform solution?
Well, again, I think it goes down there. When you think about databases, there's kind of two key elements. There's the state, which is the value of whatever is written. And then there's the log, which is you might call it the resolution on what was written.
Yeah,
What an event architecture does is it considers the log as kind of the most important part, because that's the how and the why. The state is whatever it is. Like if you think about a marital name change from Smith to Jones, okay, it's great. That happened. Did it happen a week ago? Did it happen a year ago? Did it happen 20 years ago?
yeah,
Was it a different name even before that? And in many cases, when companies want to go back and do analytics and really understand whether it's a customer, a trading environment, a manufacturing situation, they want to have a full history of everything that's ever happened. And we develop that and offer that natively from the beginning. So you'll have the ability to always go back. Secondly, again, I mentioned that putting data in a data repository is great, but we believe that your ability to stream natively out of that database to downstream applications, to analytic workload applications, to AI models is critical. So originating it and then moving it is really at the heart of what Event Store does.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that sometimes when I think about this, and I'm trying to give the most simple explanation of how this kind of solution works, I think about Uber, and I think about Uber's not a new company. They've been around for a long time. And I think it's a great example of, think about all the individual events that Uber has to connect in
Mm-hmm.
order to serve its customer base, and how
Mm-hmm.
quickly it does that. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's no time
Mm-hmm.
to wait. There's no time for that data to be resting somewhere that's inaccessible. And so I think that when you can take that example of, you need to use Uber, you pick up your device, you call an Uber, it tracks you, all of the things that Uber does, the payments part of it, all of that sort of thing. And and they continue to evolve and expand their
Mm-hmm.
capabilities on a regular basis. But then when you extrapolate that out to other high stakes use cases in industries, finance, oil and gas, healthcare, manufacturing, and you think about all of the things that need to happen quickly in those environments, I think that to me really helps demonstrate the importance of
Mm-hmm.
solutions like this.
Well, you're hitting on something that's actually instrumental too. And in the good old days when applications were vertically integrated, you would be inside of an enterprise and you would build the application. It would serve only your organization, your company. The
Yeah.
Uber example is a good one because now applications are inside and outside of an organization. They're
Yeah.
loosely coupled. So for example, Uber Eats. So Uber doesn't manage the pizza place that the person goes and picks up the pizza from, but
Right.
somehow they're able to integrate data and send information based on the requirement. Now, for example, if I go and I order a pizza through Uber Eats, there's an event called an order. Well, all of a sudden now there's an event tracking thing that happens where I'm getting updates. Well, that's an integration between the pizza parlor, Uber, the driver, and me. Well, all of that stuff has to get integrated, and the way it gets done is every one of those actions is a series of events.
Right.
And what Event Store does is we string those events together to tell a comprehensive story from order to delivery of how that works. Now, to magnify that a little bit, and we could really dive deep into the world of enterprise application development, but with a modern application environment around microservices, that is evolved because people are realizing it's easier to build a bunch of microservices and string them together than
Right.
it is to build this monolithic application. Well, guess what? Each one of those microservices communicate to other microservices in this loosely coupled event-driven way. It's
Yeah.
each service sends other data to each other service. Well, what's critical to that? There's a transmission layer between services. So we believe that if you're originating data and you're transmitting it between microservices, that's another very, very important part of where Event Store plays.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I guess a deeper dive on your Uber example is that
Yeah.
there's all these things connecting that are inside your operation and your enterprise, and some are not. They're outside, and you have to make sure it all works to deliver that pizza from order to that customer. Everybody's happy, everybody gets paid, everybody's informed.
Well,
Looks really simple, not that simple.
not that simple. Well, and it has to be efficient and it has to be fast. I mean, those are
Yeah.
the other parts of the equation that, when we are talking about, especially serving customers in those final moments of experiences, customers aren't patient. They're not going to sit around. You got to make it all happen really, really
Yeah.
fast. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of
Well,
the challenge.
Well, it
Yeah.
is. And you think about like Uber's not a customer of ours, at least they may be an open source user of our product. I should probably
Yeah.
look into that. But, you're hitting on the right point. Imagine we're standing in an airport and we're watching, where is our car?
Right.
Like, when will it be here? 2 minutes. It's 2 miles away. So we're constantly wanting to know and be
Yeah.
updated. Well, guess what? Every one of those updates is an event.
Yeah.
And every one of those
Absolutely.
events needs to get logged. And every one of those events that gets logged is available for Uber or any other enterprise to be able to go back and understand how the business is performing, what they
Right.
could do better, what could be different. So the historical element of this is the real-time element is super important to deliver good service. The
Yeah.
historical element is super important to do analytics on it to figure out how to improve service.
Right.
So you see
Right.
it works from origin and all the way through.
All works together.
Yeah.
Well, part of your announcements, Kirk, this week were around the enhancements made to Event Store Cloud. I know they
Mhm.
include, streamlining management, improving ease of use. They're designed to help customers increase time to value. We just talked about that a little bit. Walk me through, if you would, some of those enhancements that you announced.
So a big kind of corporate value for us is to be a company that's easy to do business with.
Okay.
So we want there to be as little friction in when you engage with Event Store as possible. And so we have dramatically streamlined how our cloud sign-on operates. So it's much, much faster than it was before.
Okay.
We've also added the ability to use AWS Marketplace credits. So you can buy Event Store by using your AWS Marketplace credits.
Right.
And we've added a number of other features that become very, very important. We have two platforms. One is an on-prem platform, bring your own cloud or do it in ours.
Right.
And then, obviously this piece, which is a pure SaaS play, is for those that want to be able to just swipe their credit card, which is a new feature we've just added as well.
I like
Swipe
that.
your credit card and start using Event Store. So yeah, we're super excited about the opportunity going forward with that product.
Well, and I think to me, a couple of things that were very attractive were the fact that, customers can stand up instances in minutes because you've
Mhm.
got automated provisioning happening there. And then, today, I think at a time when everybody's laser focused on cost, I think really being able to allow customers the ability to control their spend by resizing clusters dynamically,
Mhm.
I think those are big parts of the value prop.
Those are really big, yeah, and those are new. Thank you for bringing those up. Those are new enhancements
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
product, which our customers have been asking for. So,
yeah,
yeah, we're thrilled. We're thrilled about that. I mean, we've got a very good base of customers, and they, a very very high renewal rate. So we're very thrilled by that. We think this is going to attract a lot more companies because again, the
yeah.
sign on and getting into production will be faster, and then the flexibility of managing and, as you say, resizing your cluster up or
Yeah.
down will be much more simple. So yeah, we're excited to see where this goes.
Well, and I will also would be remiss to add, I cover the cybersecurity sector as well. And I noted that you've got some enhanced security and management capabilities, MFA, detailed audit logs to track everything. I mean,
Yep.
that is to me, that is table stakes as well. So some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Now, what you're doing with the fully managed event store DB cluster seems very appealing, and I imagine it will be to developers as well. Will you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So basically, what we're allowing is multiple deployment methodologies. So you can
Okay.
deploy in your own cloud, you can deploy in a cloud managed by us, or you can go in through the SaaS offering as well.
Yeah,
And so
like
it
you
kind of
just
depends
mentioned.
on how you want to do it. These days, in the early days at Cloudera, I mean, the company was called Cloudera, but nobody wanted to deploy in a cloud at the time because they were nervous about putting their
Yeah,
data in somebody else's instance. Well, now horses out of the barn on that one. Everybody's building to the cloud. We still, though, see people that want a different deployment model. And in some cases, the same company might want multiple deployment models depending on the
right.
application, depending on the division, depending on the user. So our goal is to give customers as many ways to deploy the product as they can.
Yeah. Choice. Isn't that an
Yeah,
attractive thing?
exactly.
Well, you touched on
Choice
this
to a
earlier.
point. You could give too many choices, and then now
That's
you have
true.
a different
That's
challenge.
true. I will confess that I have been to the Cheesecake Factory maybe 2 times in my entire life, and largely it was, because somebody else forced me to go there. No offense, Cheesecake Factory fans, and,
Right.
it's just not really my kind of place, but I think about too many menu options, and I think about a
Totally.
Cheesecake Factory menu. It's like, I can't possibly pick, there's too many, so,
Totally.
uh,
Yeah.
well, you mentioned this earlier, but I do want to just touch on it again. You mentioned that Event Store Cloud is available in the AWS marketplace. This integration is huge in my world.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and again, you touched on this before. Customers can leverage their existing AWS credits and the contracts they already have in place, and
Mhm.
all of this, I think, is really designed to help spur adoption, make it easy. Right, there's a
Yep.
streamlined path to be able to utilizing this. And one of the I think the key parts of this value proposition is that this allows customers to focus on building valuable products rather than thinking about managing infrastructure. That
Yeah.
consolidated billing is huge. And then, of course, you've got AWS's infrastructure that allows for low latency access. And I think all of those things together make this a really exciting announcement for customers.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Part of the ease of use, and listen, I think this goes without saying, but a product-led growth strategy for a company is also good. I mean,
Yeah.
the product is based on on an open source artifact that was put together by the company years back. But again, and that's one way to do it. The other way is give people the ability to come online, sign on easily, swipe their
Yeah.
credit card, and try it. If
Yes.
they like it, they'll stick around, and then they'll call us up and want to do more. And
Yeah.
so we want to make that kind of opportunity to work with the product frictionless. And so
Yeah.
we think this is going to really have a big impact on our top line.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of this in the market, Kirk, and I think it's just a really smart strategy. And there have been so many times, for instance, when someone has come to me and said, "Oh, we've got a new blah blah blah. We'll give you a free trial. Don't you want to do this?" And
Mhm,
sometimes
mhm,
that process can be as time consuming and cumbersome as choosing not to. So I'm a big
mhm.
fan of making it easy to give people an opportunity at a very low risk and low investment to
Yep.
get in, play around, see what it's all about, see what you can do. And then, like you said, decide, oh, this is for me. And so I think that to me, that model is so much more attractive and so much less time intensive than sort
Mhm.
of the other older way of doing things that many of us have trudged through in the past.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, we're using the term event as the denominator of what we do.
Yeah,
And, when you think about a database, typically databases, you think about it, it's relational, or it's key value store,
right.
or it's columnar, or it's something, it's graph. And we're talking about an event database. And so there are those that will want to come in and poke around and figure out how they actually could use this. In addition, with the streaming capability, where you can
Yeah,
actually set up streams and projections. It's a pretty powerful platform. It's going to be fun for us to allow people to come in and dabble to the degree they want to, and then they'll discover it on their own, which is part
yeah,
of the PLG motion that
yeah,
we've sort of enjoyed up to this point because the
yeah,
product has been out. But now that we've refined and improved the platform, we think it's going to really take off. So we're
yeah.
excited to see how it goes.
Well, that's awesome. So it's been an exciting week for you, for Event Store. When you think about, the next handful of months, the next 90 days, 60 days next year, what are you most excited about in terms of what's ahead, Kirk?
Well, I would say that in the next 6 months, we're going to announce more product offerings than we've had
Yeah,
in the previous 18 months. And that's attributed to the team that we have here and the hard work, and also the commitment that the team has to the vision of the company, which is
yeah,
we believe that, thinking about data in the form of an event is a super important element.
yeah,
Confluent, which is a streaming, behemoth and has kind of dominated that world in the world of Kafka, was the first one on the scene to kind of make the event the first class citizen.
yeah,
And so we're parlaying a little of what they do. We're on more on the database side than on the streaming side, although we have streaming capability in our product. But we actually think this is going to be a first class conversation going forward. In addition, if you think about the three areas of data platform, the operational database, which is the origination of data typically, the data streaming piece, some people used to call it the ESB, Enterprise Service Bus, and all those other ones, and that's
yeah,
in that middle category. And then the other one that is absolutely exploding that I know, Shelley, you know a lot about is the data analytics space,
right.
data lakes, et cetera. Well, those three elements have to work better together. They're
Yeah,
still somewhat stovepiped. Each one has its own fiefdom. Confluent has done a great job of kind of bridging origination of data to the analytics of data. We think we're going to come in and enhance that as well. And when you start thinking about what we're talking about, which is time and real-time enterprise, we don't have time to have these kind of impedance barriers
yeah,
between operational database to the analytic database. When we start thinking about AI, those models are only as good as the currency of that data.
that's
And if
right.
that data isn't really current and able to get to quickly, well, then that model is only as good as that data. And
Yeah,
and we know time is the killer in that situation. So
yeah.
we think we're going to have a big impact, and are really looking forward to contributing to how enterprises build their data
Yeah.
platforms out.
Well, exciting stuff. All right, I'm going to wrap this show, Kirk, and I'm just going to ask you to leave me with one piece of advice. In your work, in your advisory capacity, and your work dealing with customers. What's one piece of advice you want to leave our audience with as they're thinking about the challenge of getting arms around data management, and being able to access data in the way that's really going to fuel this next iteration of business?
Yeah,
What
and I
piece of
would say,
advice?
and I appreciate that. I would say what I kind of said was that, the data platform grew up kind of in a series of sequences.
Yeah,
Data origination under an operational database. Then we started realizing we needed to move data between applications and to other places. And then we decided that we needed to have analytic workloads, and the data warehouse and enterprise data warehouse all came together. I think one of the things that we need to do is step back from all that and look at it holistically. Don't look at it as an operational database. Don't look at it as a streaming platform. Don't only look at it as an analytic outcome. Look at that workflow as a business would look at it. A business would say, I'm originating data here. I'm moving it to other applications for other uses like inventory control,
Right.
customer service. And then I'm analyzing it so that I can think about how I run that business better. So it is not just an operational database. It is not just a streaming platform. It is not just an analytic thing.
Right.
I think we need to look at this thing holistically and see
Yeah.
how they all play together. And again, the key element is play together with time being the precious resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, perfect advice. Kirk Dunn, CEO of Event Store, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited about what you, David Wang, and the team are doing, and the future ahead looks very bright. To our viewers and listening audience, this is Shelley Kramer from Kramer & Company Research. Thank you so much for joining us today for our coverage of enterprise and emerging tech news. And if you've not yet hit that subscribe button, we'd love for you to do so. And we'll see you back here next time.